great, thank you. Welcome everyone, and I'll call this meeting to order. At this time, we'll have the playing of our national anthem.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true preacher love in all of us command. Cattle by slave he'll say for daylight war. Johnny Star to Naval Bay, J. Crew, Rios, Squad. God keep my land glorious and free. Protègera nos foyers saints, nos toits. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Great, we thank the McKay Choir once again. There are no proclamations this evening. We need to adopt the agenda. If I can have councillors Beauregard and Wells move that. Any questions with regards to the agenda, councillors? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. That's carried. Disclosures of interest. I have Councillor Beauregard has declared a conflict of interest on items 7.2, 7.3, 20.2, 20.3, and 20.4. Any other conflicts of interest, council? Seeing none. Regards to the minutes of the regular meeting of council from February the 8th, 2021. Seeing none, all in favor, please raise a hand. Carried. I have the following items under staff reports pulled for separate discussion. I have items 7.1, 7.2, 7.4, 7.7, 8.1, and 8.7. Any further items? I'll have councillors Bodner and Bruno move that the remaining items be voted on that are not requiring separate discussion. All those in favor? That's carried. Under correspondence items, I have items 8.1 and 8.7, which we have already brought forward. And under the correspondence items, for those items that weren't brought forward, I'll have councillors Bagu and Desmarais move for those with, not requiring separate discussion. All those in favor, please raise your hand. That's carried. There are no presentations this evening. We do not have any delegations. So I'll get into my mayor's report. On February the 16th, Niagara moved to gray lockdown as described in the Keeping Ontario Safe and Open framework. There have been some changes to this level in supporting our local businesses, with in-person shopping is now permitted for all retail stores subject to the following: 50% capacity for supermarkets and other stores that primarily sell groceries, convenience stores, and pharmacies. 25% capacity for all other retail, including discount and big box retailers, liquor stores, hardware stores, and garden centers. Hair salons, barbershops, tattoo parlors, and gyms remain closed at this time. We continue to emphasize the need for social distancing, hand washing, and face coverings where social distancing can't be maintained or where required by the region's face covering bylaw. We are into our Polar Plunge, our final week. The City of Port Colborne is inviting residents to participate in this year's virtual Polar Plunge in support of Special Olympics Ontario. This will be the second time the city has participated in this signature event, with participants braving the cold and jumping in Lake Erie at Sugar Lake last year. Restrictions in place, this event will be completely virtual, and we are asking participants to take the plunge safely in the comforts of their own home, or as you'll see in a minute, on the outside of their house. So if we want to go to a video that my wife and I did on last Friday, if we could have that played.
Hello, Port Colborne, and welcome to the plunge of. We've got to go virtual, and since we can't go to the beach, to you.
In support of Special Olympics, so come on Port Colborne and support Team Port Colborne.
Yay! Raise a lot of money. We're freezing for a reason.
Oh my God, that's
For a reason. Oh, that's cold.
So we had lots of fun doing that, Council, and we thank Alex Pedersen and my son Mitch for doing the camera work and throwing the buckets of, and believe me, it was ice cold or snow cold. He kept filling them with snow water. But as it said on there, it's polarplunge.ca. We would hope that people from Port Colborne go on that site and donate to our team. You can donate to individuals like my wife and I, or other members of the municipality that have done their Polar Plunge. And again, if you want to do something, you've got this week to do it and get it online, and we can continue to raise funds. Yes, by February the 28th is the last date, and if you go to http://polarplunge.ca/ways-2, that's TO-plunge. That way you can set up your account and get the donations rolling in. If you fundraise, you can receive amazing prizes and incentives while helping support over 26,000 Special Olympic athletes across the province. Post your plunge video on social media using the hashtag #PlungeON, that's in capitals, or hashtag Porticipate, that's PORTICIPATE. Be sure to tag the City of Port Colborne in your post for a chance to be featured on social media, or send your video to eventservices@portcolborne.ca. And you know, we've got a lot of great Special Olympic athletes that have gone not only throughout Ontario, across the country, but worldwide, representing our great city here, and come back silver and bronze. So you know, we truly believe in our Special Olympic athletes and all those that participate in the Special Olympics across Ontario and Canada and the world. So we are very proud of them, and they represent us very well. Clearing snow from sidewalks. With the snow, more snow or occupant of a building is responsible for clearing sidewalks bordering their property of all snow and ice within 24 hours of a snow event. This allows the safe passage for all pedestrians. If you're renting a property, please make necessary arrangements with the property owner regarding snow removal. If you're looking for a way to help your fellow residents, consider being a snow buddy. After a snowfall, your neighbors may need a hand shoveling their driveways or sidewalks. Snow Buddies is a local organization that is always looking for volunteers for those who need winter help. You can volunteer by calling 905-682-3800, extension 28. That's 905-682-3800, extension 28. Or you can be just a nice neighbor, go over and help your neighbors. And I do have a great neighbor in our neighborhood that goes around and he's got a little plow and plows everybody's drive. Everybody can be nice and help everybody. That's what we're looking for here. Today is Human Trafficking Awareness Day. When you hear about human trafficking, you think of places far away, but sadly this is not the case. This is a very real problem here in Niagara, in Ontario, and as well all across Canada and the world at large. Human trafficking involves acts that lead to the exploitation of human beings for the ongoing gain of traffickers or exploiters. Victims and survivors of human trafficking are often unwilling to come forward to report human trafficking situations to law enforcement. This can be due to fear of retaliation from traffickers or the fear that they may have committed offenses themselves, which creates difficulty for law enforcement in gathering credible evidence. Raising awareness is the first line of defense in fighting human trafficking, so please join us in raising awareness so we can help prevent this crime and help survivors get the supports they need. Right here in Niagara, our Niagara Regional Police Services receives funding each year that actually funds 2 officers and a sergeant to look after the human trafficking here in Niagara. You know, we can always do more, which is what we're working on. The province announced today they're coming out with new legislation to help all police forces right across the province tackle this big problem. And I hate to say it, as a member of the Niagara Police Services Board, this is something we discuss all the time at our monthly meetings, and our police are working very hard, and we hope the province can get this out as soon as possible so that we can hopefully get an end to this as soon as possible. We will continue to work together and remain vigilant in fighting the COVID-19 virus. Our number one priority is the health and safety of our staff and our citizens across Port Colborne. So we ask you, please stay safe, please. Any questions, Council?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was busy trying to help someone get in on their computer, and when you talked about your challenge, I was watching you and Debbie on there, but I didn't know if you had mentioned, could you post the pledge on our website if you didn't mention it? And last year I issued a challenge to everybody and got the book.
YouTube is where you can find it, where you can find a lot of things for Port Colborne. So you can go on there. I know that video. People can donate towards the cause. Thank you, Councillor Bruno. I appreciate that.
Yep.
Councillor
Be quick like a bunny, I hope. I just wanted to bring you all up to date. I checked the region's website for COVID a while ago today, so our numbers are coming down really well. Outbreaks is down to 18, but 4 new today. Folks vaccinated in Niagara, 2 of the folks. 2 of the folks there have had their first dose, and 98.5 have had their second dose, which is good news. And our high-risk retirement homes have been vaccinated, and that The next thing I want to talk to you a little bit about is an email that I sent you all regarding. It was in response to in terms of the Housing and Homeless Action Plan, being a participant.
Okay, we're back. We just want to make sure that when people are watching later at home, they know if it's real or is it Memorex. For all you.
Okay.
So do you want to start over, Barb, so we can get the whole report in? I hate to put you through that, but we want to make sure everybody can see this.
From the beginning?
Yes, from the beginning. Thanks,
Okay.
Barb. I appreciate it.
So the COVID piece, and this comes from the regional website. There are 9 new cases today, so our numbers are coming down really well. Outbreaks is down to 18, 4 new today. Vaccinations that have been done in Niagara, 9,251 with 166 done today. At Northern Point, 99.2. The residents there have had their first dose and 98.5 have had their second dose. So they're in really good shape. And actually all the long-term care homes and high-risk retirement places have been done. So we're really made good progress as well. With all of you by email regarding the homelessness, addiction, mental health crisis and the state of emergency piece that was asked for. So I'm going to call it the Encina motion. It was put forward by Regional Councillor Encina from Fort Erie. And I think it struck a very good balance between and actually action items to really push this forward with the funders of programming, namely is the province and the feds. So it did outline what we're doing now with the Housing and Homeless Action Plan. It outlined that we're a participant in the Built for Zero campaign, and as well talked about the adoption of the mental health and well-being, which is 2.2, and addresses the affordable housing, which is 2.3, in the as a strategic priority for this regional council. So there are 2 planned housing projects that directly address those experiencing chronic homelessness. And it also directs Chair Bradley to advocate directly with the province and the feds, outlining this significant crisis in Niagara and requesting additional funding. So these are the things that this motion outlined. It also asks for a report back to regional council with progress and critical gaps that will, I'm sure, still exist, so that we know where we're at and where we need to go. It also requests an update from the Overdose Prevention and Education Network with the current status and actions being taken to address addiction-related issues. So I think that was an appropriate response to the request and an actual action to be taken, which is, I think, what the whole purpose was in the first place. As well, at the Planning and Economic Development Committee meeting this week, I also sent you the resolution regarding strengthening the language regarding protecting the aquifers in Niagara. This have to include language in the new official plan, and basically says that groundwater across the region is an important source to all, and specifically in terms of drinking water to the many rural residents. So regionally, municipally, to strengthen helps us going forward. And I got to, kind of a fun note, I got to do some reading at the Early On Center to help celebrate Family Day, Family Week. and I had a lot of fun doing it as well. So council meets this Thursday, just so you know, and I'm going to take Councilor Bruno up on that polar plunge sponsoring challenge, and I will contribute to that as well. Happy to do it, and I really enjoyed your video, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you,
Really?
Councillor.
It was wonderful.
You know, together this year with the help of some of our staff and friends. And,
Well done.
yeah, I mean, yeah, my wife was the one that decorated the front yard. I just want everybody to know that. And yeah, so it was good. Questions to the councillors' report, or any other questions? Seeing none. Barb, thank you, and I hope the renovations are still going. Perfect. Next we have staff remarks. For any staff that has something for council, if you could put your video on so that I can start with you guys. Does any staff member have any? No. Okay, that's good. CAO, clerk's office, nothing. Okay, perfect. I'm going to get into council's remarks. So I'm just going to go across the top. Councilor Beauregard.
I have none at this time. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Wells.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have one item, and I've already started to discuss this with our Director of Operations and Engineering. It's in regards to the load limits that were placed upon Brookfield Road last year due to damage from heavy trucks in the area between Forks Road and Third Concession. I've received some concerns from a number of local residents there in regards to the load limits restricting the ability for farmers and owners and being able to conduct their business because they receive or ship materials that would have a load limit, or an actual loading, which would be higher than the limit. So that those concerns have been raised, and I've brought this issue to the Director of Operations, Mr. Kalamoto, in regards to seeing if there's any resolutions or any options we have in regards to that road, Brookfield Road, as well as having the restrictions on Brookfield Road. What that's caused is some heavy truck traffic on east-west roads that are not suitable for heavy trucks. And I've also had residents on those roads calling in regards to the heavy trucks and potential damage on that. If council can remember, the damage could not be traced back to the company causing the damage because the road was not built to the standard to handle that. And the city ended up incurring costs between $50,000 and $60,000 for the repair to that road that was necessary to avert any safety issues created by the crumbling asphalt and rutted allowances. So this is being brought forward, and Director Kalamoto and I are working on that, and hopefully we'll be able to come back with some resolutions to the issue. And I would just ask any of the residents that have raised the concern to please have some patience while we try to work through this.
Great. Chris?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no comments right now. Just a reminder that second concession and third concession do March 1st to April 30th. So if there are any residents watching, it's just a reminder for that. And
Great.
we will come back with a report after.
Great. Thank the Director for that. Councillor Bodnar?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Chris, I guess. Notice that Centennial Park is not being plowed of snow, and maybe it's just the situation we're in with COVID, but there seems to be a lot more people visiting it in the winter, and there was 5 cars parked on Vimy Ridge Road on the weekend. Of course, there's no parking there. I certainly wouldn't want to see them get ticketed. People were using the playground there. They were going for walks on the beach, and I just wondered.
And speaking with our park supervisor, we're able to actually put the clearing of the snow onto our secondary list, which would mean that we would clear the parking lot of snow within 24 hours after the snowfall ends. So we should be able to do that due to the COVID issue and the use of the park increasing lately. We're able to do that.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, can I ask that we put that on as a item on to budget, just because it wasn't there this year, so that maybe we can pick that up right away?
Okay, I can do that. Mr. Bowles, you're online, I see. If you want to just put your video on. There we are. You can, if you heard Councillor Bodnar with regards to the snow plowing issue at Centennial Park?
Yeah, through the mayor to council, I've written it down and we'll include it in our submission for 2022.
Going forward from now until the end of March, because I'm sure we won't get much snow after that, we're able to keep clearing that snow. Are we okay with that at your end?
Yeah.
Mr. Bowles, as far as the dollar amount goes? Is there a way we can find it?
Through the mayor to council, if we're going to plow that, we will find the dollars. We'll make that happen.
Councillor Bodnar, is that fine?
Absolutely.
Is that okay with the
you.
director? Great, thank you. Okay, Councillor Bodnar,
Yes,
you're done?
done.
Oh,
Yep.
perfect. Councillor Bagu.
I'm good, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Desmarais. She's there. Councillor Desmarais?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have nothing tonight.
Great, thank you. Councillor Clayliff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just another public service announcement. I've had a lot of calls about snow removal this week as well. And I guess I just want to remind people that, you know, that we, especially in the downtown area, that the city does not plow the sidewalks. And just to remind people, again, we're helping each other, doing everything it can, but it is not a city responsibility. It is the responsibility of store owners and lease people who own the buildings to actually clear the sidewalk. And I think people are pretty good about it. Some of them are still not quite understanding it, but we're getting the word out there. So, and thank you again to Alex for putting that out. The more we can get it out there, the better it is. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Danch.
Thanks. Through Mr. Mayor, I guess more to Chris, and I apologize, I didn't mention anything earlier, but I mean, I know the snow's the issue and it's that time of year, and you know, we finally got some winter in that, but we've got some fairly delinquent people that don't clear their sidewalks. And I've got about 250 feet of sidewalk in front of my business. And we work darn hard keeping it clean for people for lots of reasons. I mean, we're servicing this end of town. We've got that sidewalk machine that goes around and it goes down King Street. I know for sure because I walk it and it's been along the promenade and stuff like that. And once again, appreciating that. I don't know, I guess Chris or even to Brian, maybe we should get this sidewalk machine doing a little bit more, maybe down in the main core downtown on Clarence Street. The sun doesn't hit some sides of the road. So if you're an adamant person and you're out there first thing in the morning, you get it before the traffic hits it, you might knock it down a little bit. I'm on that side of the street. I'm looking north. If I don't get out there early and clean it, it's a constant battle. And, you get the dripping on the sidewalks and all that kind of stuff. But maybe if that sidewalk machine could do a little bit more and we could possibly budget it for the Clarence Street business area and stuff like that. It does a fantastic job. It's the perfect piece of equipment. And I wouldn't mind seeing it doing a little bit more if we could do that, please.
I'm gonna have the CAO answer that.
Sure, through your worship to Councillor Danch, I do appreciate that there's two items here. The sidewalk item, I think, is a great, the machine is a great idea. I'll take it back to a management meeting and see if we can make that happen, get it done in a safe way in the current operating budget. The clearing issue is, I think, a bylaw issue, and the city does do enforcement when people don't clean their own sidewalks. So that's absolutely a call or email to the city bylaw department, and I'm doing this as an announcement to the public through Councillor Danch. Extension, I want to say 203, but I could be wrong. 227? 207, extension 207 at City Hall, 835-2900 in the 905 area code, and bylaw enforcement at portcolborne.ca for email, and we'll get that to every bylaw officer so they can go out there and make sure that those sidewalks are getting done.
Great, thank you, Mr. Louie. Councillor Danch, anything further?
I thank you for that. And of course, the other echo is, guys, you need to get your cars off the street. I mean, we've lucked out this winter. We've only had 2-3 little snow droppings, and we're used to more than that. You got to get your cars off the road so the guys that are driving those plows can clean the routes. Because, that's everybody's second complaint is those roads aren't clear and you couldn't get anywhere. And so please, if you could, get your cars off the road. I know the road crews are doing their best. They're out there like in the wee hours of the morning getting started because it does take a long time. If everybody does a little, no one's got to do a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And Councillor Bruno.
Thank you, Worship. Two tonight. One is, Chris, I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to talk to you ahead of time, but I did have a concern from a local resident here in the ward that was shopping downtown, and it would apply to the north end as well. And it wasn't about a merchant or a sidewalk not being shoveled. It was about them shoveling and the city plowing. And of course, that pile that's left right at the curb between the parking space and the sidewalk. And I don't know if there is a city policy as to when the city comes around and can pick that up. It's happened in the past. It's usually been around protracted snowfalls, one after another, and snow piling up. This year we haven't really expended much, I assume, on snow plowing. And I didn't know if there was an opportunity, and with today's thaw, it may mostly be gone, but it was a legitimate complaint that they had parked just past the front of Shoppers, but nobody, the only sort of hole to the sidewalk was the handicap spot, I believe done by Shoppers, but they had to really go to Catherine Street or way further up till there was a merchant who was probably up by Scotia Bank or something, who had cut a passageway to the street. Will we be doing any of that pickup of snow that piles up from the plow and the sidewalk?
Director?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruno. As there are curb face sidewalks, there is often some snow that does get thrown up onto the sidewalk when the street plows go by. If there is a large buildup after we have done our rounds, we would go back and clear the excess of snow if it is blocking. But I'd like any of the residents watching to maybe call into our customer service line. We will go out and take a look at any of the snow pileup complaints and ensure with time, whenever we have our manpower and our time, to go and clear the excess snow.
Thank you. Chris, maybe if you could have a look at that one particular area that I mentioned that I received a complaint on, but I'm sure while you're at it, if you can look at both Main Street and the downtown for obvious spots. Maybe they don't always have to be complaint driven if they're warranted. I'd appreciate that. Mr. Mayor, and the second one was councillors may get an email or a call from a local resident who was concerned about the recent, I believe it was, I'm not sure which online newspaper it was in, but that convenience stores have now been applying, and in Niagara, I think it was 7-Eleven, for the ability to sell wine and spirits and beer. And the question of the resident was, because I want to differentiate it from cannabis, is there an opportunity for a municipality to do motions and send in their joint thoughts? Or is there a way that that could be facilitated? All I could think of on the spur of the moment was the local MPP and maybe a government MPP. But I didn't know, and if maybe the clerk knows, are we precluded as a council from making a motion or taking a stand on that? We certainly have another council meeting prior to the deadline for public responses. So I'm just wondering if perhaps we could, if the clerk could take a stab at answering that.
Actually, I'm going to give it to the CAO.
Okay.
Sure, through your worship to Councillor Bruno, I've done a little looking into this lately. I do know that I'm aware of the application or the applications that are before the AGCO. I'm a little bit confused about the applications because the word that I'm getting is different than what you said. I'm hearing that some of these variety stores, and in particular 7-Eleven, which has a location in Port Colborne, are applying for on-premises consumption. So you could buy some of the food that's for sale there and consume alcohol there. In some, I don't know if it will be renovated to have a dining area. It's a little bit loose on the details, because at first I thought it made sense that it would be an after-hours type agency store where you could buy sealed packages and bring them home, even though it's in close proximity to both the beer store and Brewers Retail Beer Store, I guess it's called now, and LCBO in Port Colborne. Staff is aware of the application, but we don't get circulated normally by AGCO. The only reason we're, some staff have chosen to put themselves on mailing lists so they'll get a notification from the province when an application is made in Port Colborne for any kind of a liquor permit or cannabis permit. We haven't had a practice of bringing those to council in the past, and I would hate to pick and choose when we bring them to council. I think that that should be done at more of the elected official level rather than at the staff level, because to apply that arbitrarily, there could be some assertions of, you know, discriminating against particular operators in town. So the practice, I like it the way it is. Now, this particular application, though, and I'm getting to the end here, and to your point, is open for comment until March 11th, directly to the AGCO. Any resident in Port Colborne that's in favor or against the application can go to the AGCO's website and make a comment. The city could also comment. If it was council's desire, you could tell me today or at the March 8th council meeting what comments you would want to have submitted on behalf of the city. Alternatively, I could bring a staff report back to the March 8th council meeting with some options, and if approved, still get the comments in the first 3 days after the March 8th council meeting, so meeting the deadline of March 11th. So that's, now you know everything I know.
Great.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Mr. Mayor, thanks for clarifying that for me. Yes, it was about consumption. Because we have that time, I was thinking about pondering a motion at that next council meeting, but really you'd be doing the research for me. So I much prefer that you bring back a staff report with options, because I'm sure you and your staff will identify more options than I can think of. So I would like to see that. Do you need council's endorsement or need a motion on that?
We could take council direction. The CAO's already offered to bring that back to us. I would caution council, though, if this is going to be a practice of council, if that's what you guys want, then I would make sure that the CAO has that in his report, because as he said, you don't want to be picking and choosing on license applications. So this is and as Mr. Louis stated, this is like a restaurant-style consumption within 7-Elevens. This is, I guess, across the province this is happening. I was listening to CFRB on Thursday or Friday when I was out in my vehicle, and they did about a 15-minute information session on their talk show with regards to it. So, I just caution council, if this is how you're going to move forward, I think you're going to have to be very consistent with this, so that you would bring every application in Port Colborne that comes forward for a restaurant bar style license, and that we're going to be commenting on it. Councillor Bruno.
Mr. Mayor, I like your idea of including in the option, basically the option you just stated,
Yes.
which is, you may not want to do this and here's why. I find it always better to have a list of options and then make the choice. So I would like to see the staff report, but again, that's no guarantee that we would take one or any of the options.
Correct.
But I think it'd be prudent to at least view them.
Yep.
So,
okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Louis, you're all set with that then? Yeah. Okay. Staff is set on that. Thank you, Councillor. Okay, that's Councillor's items. Okay, we're getting into consideration of items requiring separate discussion. Our first up is item 7.1, so let me bring that up. And that is moved, I'll have Councillors Wells and Desmarais move that Fire and Emergency Services Report 2021-59 be received, and that the fire chief be directed to continue billing for providing firefighting or other emergency services to non-residents in accordance with bylaw 6741/105/19. And councillors, Mr. Jaskaran Singh is in attendance again this evening. He was here last meeting when this came up. So I'm going to have Councillor Wells start this. Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In regards to this, I have no problems or no concerns with leaving the invoicing as it stands. I would like to make a suggestion, if possible, to city staff and fire staff that should a situation of emergency such as the one that had happened there occur, that they have if they have the ability to identify the hazards and notify the facility operator of the impending hazard and recommend the operations of the facility to implement the facility's emergency measures action plan to possibly avoid such situations in the future. That's it.
Okay, I think our Madam Clerk has something to add on this. You're fine with that? Okay, thank you. Mr. Lawson.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Wells, just so you know that we are in touch with the hospital and Northland Point during those events. We do speak closely with them. Just, I know with Northland Point, we've come to the point of almost sandbagging the main entrance. So they are aware of the situation, and we try to make sure that everybody's on the same page for those. So if Mr. Singh missed that message, it wasn't from lack of trying on our behalf.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Chief. Anything further, Councillor Wells?
In the report, I didn't notice that we had made reference to that practice of notifying the facility. It gives me confidence now that that happens and that people in those situations can take action to avert any problems. Thank you, Scott.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any further questions, Council? Okay, not seeing any. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. That is carried. Mr. Singh, we have approved the billing from the fire department, so we'll have staff contact you, clerk's office. You can have somebody contact him tomorrow. We'll have our staff contact you tomorrow with regards to next steps. Okay, thank you. Next is item 7.2. I'll have Councillor Wells and Councillor Claylough move this, that the Chief Administrative Officer Report 2021-54 be received, that Council approve a memorandum of understanding between the City of Port Colborne and Port Cares for an affordable housing development, and that a bylaw to enter into an MOU with Port Cares be brought forward. Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know there's a lot of debate on this, and I was just looking for confirmation that the city or some staff member or ward councillor has looked at alternative sites for possible locations of similar type of establishments. I know that it's quite concerning, and people think that we have lots of available properties within the city for this type of development, but I would just like it stated that actions do are taken where we do search for properties that would be suitable or more suited for this type of development, and that that was done in this case. So, Mr. Mayor, I don't know if that would go to you or to.
I'm going to go to Mr. Long.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. I'm certainly pleased to take council direction on this request, if that is the consensus of council. One of my responsibilities is city real estate in partnership with our economic development officer, and I can tell you that there's very few city-owned properties that would be suitable for this type of development. I mean, the city owns a lot of land, but it's baseball diamonds, soccer fields, and public parks. We simply do not have other vacant city lots that would be suitable for this development. That being said, if there's direction from council to look at some other possibilities, other options, perhaps engage some private sector landowners, we'd be happy to take that direction.
Thank you, Mr. Long. Councillor Wells.
Yes, I'm not seeking any direction to take any action to look. I take Director Long's response that he is aware of all the property we have, and that this is the most suitable that we have at our access right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Claylough.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Madam Clerk, this is a question for you, simply because I've received a letter from a resident who asked me if I would read this tonight when this came up regarding the MOU, and I'm not sure if that is true protocol, if I should be doing this, so I just wanted your direction on this.
Madam Clerk.
If you choose to read that, it is up to you. Our delegation process is I receive all delegations by noon the day of the meeting, and we circulate them to council and staff, and we put it online as well. But if you wish to read any of those delegations, it is up to you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I think I will go ahead and read this. I think it's just a generalized letter, just to make everyone aware of the concerns. I have spoken with this person, and I understand their concerns, while at the same time I do support going forward with this project as long as it follows all of the parameters, everything that we're looking at. I think it hopefully, if we follow everything and do it as we've said, I think it can be a great new community within our community. So I will read her letter, and this is to the mayor and members of council. I'm writing this letter in regards to report 2021-54, that MOU between the City of Port Colborne and Port Cares for an affordable housing development should not be approved until a decision on the zoning bylaw amendment D14-421 has been concluded. Furthermore, that my concerns and questions from the public meeting be addressed before any further action is taken regarding the sale of Chestnut Park, including the aforementioned MOU. It was the direction of council to not have questions directly answered at the public meeting and that staff respond via email. In the FAQ section online and in the staff report due back to council sometime in early March. Sincerely, Melissa Bigford. And Melissa's, I think her thought is that they haven't received those answers back and they're questioning that we're moving forward on this.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none, all in favor, raise your hand. All opposed? That's carried. On to item 7.3. I'll have Councillors Bodner and Bagu move this, that the Centennial Cedar Bay Beach Operations Plan attached as Appendix A and the Nickel Beach Operations Plan attached as Appendix B of Corporate Services Department Report 2021-49 be approved, and that the Director of Corporate Services be directed to engage staff in the implementation of the seasonal operations outlined in Appendix A and Appendix B of Corporate Services Department Report 2021-49. And I'll start off with Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Your Worship. After reading the report and the plans, I have a number of questions, and unfortunately I haven't had time to share those with the appropriate parties. So at this point in time, because I have so many questions regarding the plans, I would like to make a motion to refer this back to staff to provide a report, a financial report that supports the intents and the plans. And I would, again, would like to have a number of questions responded to that I will provide to staff tonight, actually.
Okay, so there's no debate on a referral. Do I get a seconder on referring this? Councillor Desmarais seconds the referral. There are no questions. Just undue to time, Councillor Wells, would this come back to our next council meeting?
Yes, it would.
Okay, thank you. Just so we know that the referral will be until our March council meeting. Okay, just for the sake of the time that's coming back, Director Bowles, if Councillor Wells or any other councillor gets you the questions and you can have them answered. Obviously the report is already in. New reports for the next meeting are due tomorrow. Is that okay for the next meeting, or do you want it to come back at the second March meeting? Director?
We'll make every effort to get it back for the next, through yourself, Mayor, to council. We'll make every effort to get it back for the next meeting. Obviously, if we do move forward with some of the recommendations or thoughts put forward in this report, one issue would be procuring the technology to be able to do that. So a decision sooner rather than later would be preferred by staff.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Council, as I said, there's no debate on this. It will, as hard as the Director will try to get it back to the next meeting. All those in favor of referring it, please raise a hand. Raise your hands, Councillor, so I can see. All those against? It's carried. Item 7.4, that Corporate Services Department Report 2021-56 be received, that the recommendations regarding rates and fees as outlined in Appendix A, Appendix B, Appendix C, and Appendix D to Corporate Services Report 2021-56 be approved. I have moved Councillors Wells and Bagu to move this. Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a couple of questions, and I'm not sure whether they would be directed to the Marina Supervisor, Mr. Minor. I see that he is present on the meeting tonight, or if they would be directed to Director Bowles. But I'll throw them out there. The first question that I have is, has a business case or financial plan being completed on the marina that supports approving the fees and justifying the capital investment?
Mr. Bowles?
Through the mayor to council, as council's aware, we're in the process of a consultant's report on the plan for the marina. We hope to have that back to council within a couple of months. I can tell you at an initial phase, what we've been looking at is the marina historically has not been self-sustaining. It's run at a loss for a number of years. So the fee increases that are proposed here will help support moving us out of that position. When we did do the budget and council approved the budget, we did have a very small number for repair and maintenance in there. The fee increases here, much of that will be used to offset capital and repair at the marina. I think what's important also for council to realize around that we're kind of working in this fluid situation is about, I think it was a council or two councils ago, we discussed insurance. And one of the things that really changed, I think, for this council and for this project at the marina around insurance is the I guess the levels to which we're insured. The minimum deductible increased significantly, meaning that when we do have damage to docks, etc., we are going to be more self-insured. And in conversations with our supervisor, Mr. Minor, I think we've already identified there is going to be additional work required on the docks this year. Fully accessing that hasn't been completed yet because we do have the ice and the snow out there in the lakes, but that is something that is going to have to be addressed, and we do expect the fee will be able to help us address that. I think I also just point out, I think with respect to the work that is being done, the consultants that will be bringing back a report with us to council to look at about future capital work that will be needed at the facility will identify that our rates are substantially less than other comparable or other marinas. And this move in rate increase will actually only be moving us towards the more comparable rate. To delay the increase is in many respects just going to delay the ability and staff's ability to start on some capital projects that we'll be bringing forward to council through that review process with the consultant.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wells?
Thank you, Brian. And following from what you've just said, if the marina is not hitting the self-sustaining level, if our fees are far below our competitors' marinas, as you suggest, why would we take 4 years to raise our rates to a comparable level of those? Why wouldn't we do that this year?
Director?
Yeah, through the mayor to council. I think that's a fair question. What we've tried to do is kind of grow into the rate. So the goal is to be able to grow our service level and then grow our capital replacement work over a couple of years to grow into the rate. So that way the users of the facility don't experience a sticker shock situation. As identified through the budget process, we have budgeted for break even in 2021, and we do anticipate with this increase and with what we're anticipating with some capital work as a result of the docks, we will be able to achieve break even. The following years, I think it's going to be more about putting the dollars back to work and plowing them back into the marina to make the marina the facility that people expect it to be.
Councillor?
That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I have Councillor Bagu next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, I am disappointed to see this come up with a rate increase between 10 or 14% without the plan coming back to council. The study's been out quite a bit, quite long actually. I'm surprised that it is taking this long. There was some public engagement that was supposed to be included in this strategic plan, which we can't see as a council until after we make these rates. The other thing is, whether you like it or not, we still got COVID this summer. And you're going to charge a lot more money for people who don't even put their boats in the water. There are a lot of restrictions on COVID at the marina. And I cannot justify increasing these rates as long as, for this summer, as long as COVID's still around here. The future plans of the marina is very, very vague. I don't even know what they are, actually. The shower and washroom facilities were mostly closed, well, initially this year. We had no students, so to speak, last year. If we're going to go supposedly break even with no transients because of COVID, like I'm under the impression that we're going to lose money still. We're not going to break even because of this. And so these reasons here, I'm definitely not in favor of increasing the rates by 10 to 14%. The launch ramp, I got no problem with because of what's happened in the past there. But the actual marina rates, no, I'm not in favor of that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any further questions? Councillor Bruno.
Thank you, Worship. I had a long discussion today with Mr. Bowles. As you know, I pushed for the consultant to be brought forward into last year. And like Councillor Bagu, I was hoping that that push to get it done, the marina gave up its operating surplus, got the consultant in. You all had a chance to speak to him. I think there's lots to be had that could be done. And remember, we're just looking on the rate side, and I would hope to have instituted some of the policy decisions and rules. I basically asked the same two questions that Councillor Wells asked. And I am also of the mind that 4 years is a long time, and the longer you take to flex it in. And I think that statement is a bit broad brushed in that some rates might not need 4 years to implement, and some may be further behind, and to avoid sticker shock might. But if you are indeed, and I believe, that far below other comparable marinas, that it is prudent and right to start migrating towards that sooner rather than later, because it just does defer the problem with inflation each year at the same time. I think that the couple rates that they've chosen are, I mean, if at the end of the day it's going to be 10% a year for 4 years, there's no sense in avoiding 10% or 11% or 12% as it is now. And I think it's important to remember what the base number is when you just look at the percentages. That's a factor. I do believe we could have done this rate survey on all the rates a lot sooner to see where we do need to get to. However, we're now approaching March 1st, and certainly on the seasonal side and the booking side, people do need some clarity as where they're going. So I will support this for now. I would like to have us not wait so long into next winter maybe, but in the fall, or certainly if we're going to set rates in the fall on seasonal for the next year, let's hopefully, Mr. Bowles, if I could get a response, you can have this rate survey and that to us before setting next year's rates, because marina users should get to know what their rates are going to be in September as opposed to March to make their decision. So I would like to see that. So this is more of a statement than a question, other than will the rates be available early in the fall? My question that I was going to ask over and beyond Councillor Wells was, with respect to the ramp, I do agree with Councillor Bagu that it is moving in the right direction. In reality, the non-senior rate, now that it's blended with the raise, is going to be, I think, $10 or even with what the rates were 2 years ago. So I agree with Councillor Bagu. It is not a meteoric rise in rates and is warranted. The question at the ramp becomes, we have tried to encourage people to buy seasonal passes at the ramp. It does away with all the minutia of daily ones. The parking machines down there and the fines or the payment of the correct fee were meant to augment the sustainability of that ramp, not to make a profit. But as it turns out, the history shows that the parking machines down there are out of order more than they are in order. Some of it to do with the elements. So it is a bit of an affront if you look at what 1 year there were actually no monies collected by parking down there because a machine broken all year. Last year it got started late because of a sensor or a solar sensor that didn't work. And the take because of the breakdowns is minimal compared to what one would think. So I'm just wondering if you have contemplated a way, or Mr. Minor has, of dealing with the parking fees down there for those who don't buy a seasonal pass and the parking machine for those who are in violation. Through you to Mr. Bowles. Mr. Mayor.
Director Bowles, there's a few questions in there. The first one is, can this come back, not this report, but next year's rate report, can that come to us in the fall?
Yeah, through yourself, Mayor, to Council. Our anticipation is we're going to actually have the consultant's report, and we do apologize to Council that we've had the delay with the change up in our org structure. We will have that report to you soon. And then we will have that discussion with Council. And as far as the rates, our goal is to set next year's rates in the fall with line of sight to future year rates at the same time. And then, Mr. Mayor, do you want me to go on to the second question?
Go to the next question.
The second one is, how do we plan to handle parking down around the marina? We've had a lot of great conversations, and maybe Mark will jump in when I'm Mr. Minor, when I'm done. Specifically, we've had a discussion around technology that people could use mobile app to actually pay for their parking, continue to purchase either from City Hall or from the marina a pass, and or could go to the marina and pay directly at the marina. We acknowledge the technology, partly because of some of the elements, does have significant issues with constantly breaking down. So for that reason, we are looking at the more simplistic approach of actually just going to the marina and picking up your pass, your day pass, your multi-use pass, or using technology such as mobile technology through a phone to be able to buy your day pass. Maybe I'll pass it over to Mr. Minor if he has any additional comments there.
Mr. Minor?
Thanks, Brian. And yeah, through Mr. Mayor to Council, yes, the goal is to give the people that use the boat ramp more options. So if that boat, the pay and display machine is down, that there will be an app. I won't say what app it will be, but so they're either going to be able to use the pay and display machine, purchase their daily passes at the marina, or use the app as well. So there's 3 different options that they're going to be able to use, and some better signage to be able to use those options.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Bruno?
That was it, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mark. I'm glad you mentioned the signage down there so people can see those various options. I'm just very concerned that once you have the machine down there that's currently there and it does not work, that you can't count on people automatically defaulting to the other 2. So I would suggest you look at whether you want the machine or not, because I think it's fair to say if the machine's not working, I don't know that guarantees people using the other options. And that is of grave concerns to me. So you may want to look at that. I don't know if Mr. Bowles has any thoughts on that as well. Obviously, we want to drive people to buying a seasonal pass and not be done with it. And lastly, without the machines, I think you need some signage to differentiate between people who might park there without a trailer if you start going with the machine. And I think all that needs a very thorough think through on the signage. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And just, Mr. Bowles, is there a way we could contact the company that looks after the pay and display machine for the Niagara Health System at the hospital and have them look after our machine if they're the ones that are putting the machines in and maintaining them on a daily basis and coming around X amount of times a day to make sure people are paying for parking? Since they're already there, is there something that we could look at with that company?
Through the mayor to council, we are having those conversations, and there's always conversations that happen between the local within the local area. But we are having those conversations specifically, and that will help assess how we bring in either electronic mechanism to pay for parking, or we beef up a potential partnership with the hospital / the home that is located there. So perhaps what I can offer to council is, since there have been a number of questions on this, we can bring back perhaps an information report once we get the rest of that information from the potential partner. Thank you, Mr. Bowles.
Any further questions? Councillor Kalaliff, then Councillor Danch.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Two things. I understand what Councillor Bagdu is saying. When you talk about percentages, it sounds like a very large amount, but when the numbers are very small that you're looking at and the percentage is 10-15%, but in dollar terms, it's only $5 to $10. I don't think it's a lot. Having been a voter, I understand the need for the increases. I understand the need for money to repair the docks and the work that needs to be done. The larger boats are, of course, the larger dollar amounts. And, maybe that's just a case of reassuring these people. I think that everyone knows that these are very good rates. And I know it sounds like a lot when you talk percentage, and I almost wish that we wouldn't, because I much prefer looking at the dollar amounts, and I think that most people would. I don't think that these are really, they're not tremendously over the moon amounts of money to be putting forward for the number of years that people have been there and not had increases. And I think that people do understand, having been there, that there's work that needs to be done and repairs that need to be made, and they're not inexpensive repairs. Everything costs to be done. So I think I would probably support all of these. And my second comment, though, is actually to Mr. Bowles, because maybe I misunderstood, but for the last year or two, I was under the understanding that the marina had made money and that the money that was made went off to pay for other things because it wasn't required. It was used in other areas. Is that right, or am I wrong? Because you stated that they've been losing money for a number of years.
Mr. Bowles?
Through the mayor to council, what you're going to find is, on a variable cost perspective, they're breaking even. But the reality is there's a number of additional fixed costs and costs that are being picked up at the levy level that aren't necessarily being allocated to them. And those costs, once you start allocating or factoring those costs in, those costs suggest that the marina has not been breaking even for the last number of years.
Yes. Yeah, I totally understand. I'm really out of this anymore. We sold our boat, so I won't be involved in any of this anymore. But I do understand the dilemma, and I understand the requirements of what's needed to repair the docks and all the work that has to be done. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Danch.
Thank you. I guess I'm going to go twofold here. I got one for Mark and one for Brian, but I'll pick on Mark first since we can't skate and talk on the ice right now. Right? Yeah. Mark, it's been mentioned for years, and as much as I'm not boating a lot these days, I still own a boat and I love the marina and the lake and stuff. we're always talking about repairing the docks. I mean, it's been a constant battle. Long before you showed up, somebody thought we could leave those docks in the water and they would float. Obviously, that's not working. If we had to take the docks out of the water and leave the vertical poles out there and then reattach them in the spring, I know the workload there is tremendous, but like, would we save thousands of dollars by investing thousands of dollars? Because it just, every year I know we're fixing these darn things. I just wonder if you have an opinion on that.
Mr. Minor?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Danch, I think it would take probably the whole winter and quite a few people to get those docks out for the before it freezes. So unfortunately, I think with all the electrical, there's some docks that are chained and anchored there. It's almost an impossible task. And then where would you put the docks as well? There's no place to even put them. So I think you just have to leave them in and just hope for the best as far as weather goes.
Counselor?
Yeah, I understand the workload there is huge, and just hoping for the best. Every year it's the same scenario. You know, we've got to go and fix, and we got welders down there and guys replacing steel members and everything else. But okay, that's fine. My second question is towards Brian, if I could. We're talking about these payment machines and how often they're down and that. And I know I was kind of one of the guys way back when that said, you know, let's get rid of the guy on the dock, because what's the guy on the dock doing on a rainy, cloudy, windy day? So we brought in these mechanical machines that don't seem to work all that well. I don't know if you guys have ever been in the car wash in Welland there on Highway 58, but you go to a car wash, it's misty, it's cold, it's damp, it's wet, call it what you want. You slash your credit card and that thing works within seconds. And maybe we have to separate ourselves from those guys over in the hospital parking lot that aren't up to date on what's going on. But all I know is you got a private vendor that has a system working, and it's working extremely well. I went in the other day after a trip home and went and washed my vehicle, and it was painless. And I've been down to the dock. I've heard the complaining about the machines. I don't think we need to get rid of the machines, but we need to have something that's reliable. And hopefully, Brian, you guys can get together with someone that's going to give us a better service.
Okay, Mr. Bowles?
Through the mayor to council, I think the best approach here is we are working on a couple different options, mobile, and we are having a conversation with the service providers that work with the hospital and the home there. Barring the outcome of that, I think maybe it's best if I just bring back an information report. We can get Mike or Mark, sorry about that, Mr. Minor, to help us write another report, and we'll just update council with the options we have there. The goal there is just to keep it simple, so that way customers come by and they can get in and get out pretty quick.
Great, thank you, Mr. Bowles. You're all set, Councillor Danch? Any further questions? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. That's carried. On to item 7.7, Engineering and Operations Report 2021-48, be received for information purposes. I have Councillor Wells moving this and Councillor Bruno seconding it. Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Darlene, if she's still online, or if she is online.
Yep, she's here.
Excellent. Darlene, congratulations on a great report on passing with flying colors. I'd like to accommodate you and the water team on a job well done. And thank you for keeping our water system at the top of its class, and the water quality crystal clear. Thank you, Darlene.
Great, thank you, Councillor. I don't think any of us can say it any better.
Well, through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much, Councillor Wells. I know the staff appreciate the kudos.
Yeah, job well done. Any further questions on this report? All in favor, please raise your hand. That's carried. And we're on to the two correspondence items. First item is 8.1. It's the amending agreement to the Niagara Region Intermunicipal Agreement. Councillor Wells. And I'll actually, to get it on the floor, I'll have Councillor Wells and Councillor Beauregards move this. Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to just state that being only almost 2 years into this, I didn't know much about this agreement, and that in getting this report, it would have been nice to have some of the underlying information, historical information that's related to it. This intermunicipal agreement was put in place back in April 26th of 2000. And so I had to do a little bit of homework and research on this here in order just to find out exactly what we were talking about and dealing with. So I just think if we go forward with something like this, if we know, or staff knows, that there's some newcomers to the game, that if we were given some of the information, historical information, it would make some of our jobs a little bit easier and our understanding of this a little bit better. So that's just a comment that I'd like to pass on. And I have one question to Mr. Bowles, though, in regards to this. And the question to Mr. Bowles, through you, Your Worship, is how much money did the region actually pay us on this?
Mr. Bowles? I think he's looking it up right now. Go ahead, Brian.
I apologize to council. I was responding to somebody else at the same time, and I do apologize. I missed the question.
What do we get each year from the court services when the distribution is given out by the region?
Yeah, so through the mayor to council, for this current year, we budgeted just about nothing, because there is a program that they're implementing, and the contribution to the cities is going to be reduced, as well as the contribution because of COVID in 2020 was reduced, and they clawed that back. In any other year, I will get that number before the end of council and refer it back to you. I believe it's in the $15,000 figure, but I'll have that correct figure to council before the end of the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Bowles. And just to bring some information, because that question was actually asked at Regional Council in January, I think it was. And the reason why a lot of money, if at all, was given out is because they didn't collect anything. A lot of the fines were suspended, so the income was pretty much almost zero, I think. Mr. CAO, do you remember on those conversations with the CAOs? Okay, so that, yeah, so Councillor, normally we do get something, but this year was nothing because there was money that wasn't even collected from fines. So, and the other issue with this one is that the Vision Zero is coming in, so that's a program that actually we can partner with the region on regarding safety zones and things like that. So we can get more information through our staff in the region on that. You want to, yeah, sure. I'll let the CAO give us an overview of that.
Yes, through your worship to Councillor Wells, and I guess all of council. I'm not sure how much time I get. I feel like maybe I haven't spoken enough tonight at council, so I'll give you some background. I apologize for the council member not feeling prepared to receive this. I want to distinguish between a correspondence item and a staff report, though. Like, this was sent to the clerk's office to have included on the agenda. You know, whereas if this was a staff report that was coming from finance or engineering or one of these departments, we would definitely make sure there's more context. Having said that, I think there's two issues at play here, and it sounds like Councillor Wells has done the research and informed himself, but just to make sure that all of council is aware, when responsibility for the POA, and that's Provincial Offences Act, courts, was downloaded from the Ministry of the Attorney General to the region, that's the 12 municipalities in Niagara and the region, arranged to administer the court system and share in the fines. And this is interesting for council, and you're going to want to know this. If we lay a charge and are successful in obtaining a fine, we pay for the prosecutor out of the city's funds, but we don't get the fine. The fine goes into the budget of the POA court, Provincial Offences Act. 50% of those dollars go immediately to the region, and the other 50% go on a per capita basis to all the municipalities in Niagara. And that's the figure that Brian Bowles is talking about budgeting each year, and that the mayor is talking about losing during COVID. So you can imagine if we get a $5,000 fine for a violation of the fire code or something like this, we're only going to see a few $100s, and it's going to cost us hundreds of dollars in legal fees to prosecute. I guess the side benefit is if Niagara Falls or St. Catharines or some other municipality gets a large fine, we get some of it on the per capita basis as well. So that's how this whole system is administered. It's administered by a board of management, which includes permanent representatives from Welland, St. Catharines, and Niagara Falls, and a representative from Port Colborne once every 3 years for a 1-year term. So we have a turn on the board. That's typically taken by a staff person. The second issue I want to bring forward is what this agenda item is, and Councillor Wells again would have informed himself, but just so council's aware, and the mayor alluded to this, they are looking, the region has a plan, and I guess they've been talking to this about this at the CIO meetings and the treasurer meetings and even at regional council, to implement some safety measures, I guess they'd be called, the Vision Zero program, which includes red light cameras, photo radar, and so on to increase safety in Niagara. And I think the mayor and the regional councillor can speak more about that than I can. But in order to get the capital cost of that equipment, they're talking about taking more of the fines, future years' fines, from the shared arrangement until those capital purchases are completed. So council will actually see a reduced amount in the budget in the next several years until that capital is purchased, and then the budget will go back to normal rates. And it might even go higher, because at that point they're going to have automated equipment that's issuing charges for red light cameras, speeding in school zones, community safety zones, and so on, which I think is a worthy initiative to increase safety in Niagara. So that's the background on the whole JBM, Joint Board of Management, for the POA, Provincial Offences Act.
Thank you, Mr. Sayo. And just so council knows, I think the number, and if my memory serves me correctly, was just under 2 million in the first year they were looking at with fines under the red light cameras and the speeding cameras. So, and I think some of these can be moved around. Obviously, red light cameras are stationed at probably major intersections where there is issues or high volume of accidents and things like that. But I believe the photo radar type cameras can be moved around. So that is a program that's being rolled out. So that's something we as a municipality can actually get involved with. And you can take areas in Port Colborne, like school zones and things like that, where fines double in those areas. They become community safety zones. You can use in front of parks and things like that. So there's probably something as we move forward where we have major roads like Steele Street or Kalali Street East, although it's a regional road, but Kalali Street West by McKay School, in those school zones where they're in an area of high traffic volume and major arteries, that we can get involved in this program. So, but I think that's something we can move forward once it's all up and running and what the region knows and as far as how they've developed their plan to come forward. So I'll keep an eye out on this with Councillor Butters, and then we could actually probably have somebody come and speak to council about this and see how this municipality wants to move forward on the safety issues. Any further questions, councillors? Oh, sorry.
No, that answers all my questions. Thank you.
Okay, Director Bowles?
Yeah, through the mayor to council, $23,000 is what a normal budget year would be for the POA.
Great. Thank you, Director. And Councillor Wells, you're all set then?
Yes, I am, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, seeing no further, oh, I apologize. Yes. Yes, I have Councillor Wells and Councillor Borgard to receive this.
They request to receive and approve the amending agreement.
Oh, okay. So I'll have Councillor Wells and Councillor Beauregard move that we receive and approve the amendments to this agreement. No further questions? Or Councillor Wells, you're all set? Okay. No further questions. Please raise your hand. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay. Next is 8.7 is a series of letters from a number of townships with regards to the Ontario Fire College. I'm going to go to Councillor Wells. Actually, Councillor Wells, I'm going to put it on the floor to receive by yourself and Councillor Desmarais. Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Your Worship. I had talked to Chief Cartwright regarding this, and although he feels that the region and municipalities are taking up the slack from the province in regards to closing of the Ontario Fire School, that it would still be worthwhile supporting those other municipalities and townships that are looking to make their message known to the province that they do not like them closing the fire school and would like them to revisit that decision. So I would like to ask for city staff to prepare a letter of support similar to those from the other communities to try to encourage the province to reconsider their closing of the fire school. If nothing else, this would then at least let the province know that we would like to have a little bit more funding in our pocket to build the training centers that we need to protect us.
Thank you, Councillor. So I'll take that as a friendly amendment moved by Councillor Wells, seconded by Councillor Desmarais, that we support the municipalities that have sent us this correspondence, and that the clerk put together a letter of support and send it back to these municipalities as well as our MPPs and the province of Ontario. All right, you're all set, Madam Clerk, for that? Is that okay for the two councillors? You guys are all right with that?
Good for me.
Good, thank you, Councillor. Any further questions on this? Councillor Bagu?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Maybe to the fire chief or deputy fire chief. I remember reading something about this. Is this because of COVID? They're closing the school, or is this because of an operational issue?
Mr. Lawson?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to council. I believe it's actually just a budgetary issue with the fire college. They've been moving towards a regional fire school model for a bunch of years now, and I think COVID's just kind of helped it along.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bagu?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Only because our former fire chief, Mr. Sesto, left Park Colborne to instruct there years ago, and he always talked very much of the fire college. That's all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Seeing any further questions? Councillor Danch.
Yeah, through you to Scott there, if I could. Scott, you said like a regional schooling. So are they? They're going to get rid of the Ontario Fire College in Gravenhurst. Are we going to be moving something down to the Niagara region for education for these guys, or what?
Mr. Lawson?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Danch. Right now, we actually have two regional schools within the region. One's in Grimsby, one's in Fort Erie. Grimsby kind of specializes more in the fire prevention aspect of what we do, and Fort Erie into the operations. I will say, while I'm going to miss the OFC, there are a lot of opportunities that are expanding for us, learning contracts within the fire college. The fire college is still there. It's running a lot of programs, but I think there's a lot of opportunities. And while it's going to be sad to see it go, I think there's a lot of opportunities that will help this city out tremendously.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Danch?
Yeah, sad just the same. And Councillor Bagu had mentioned there about former Chief Sesto going there. And I was in the volunteers when Chief Sesto was our Lord and Master there, and he was an excellent man, and he left with high hopes for that college, and I'm sure George has joined the retirement side of things, and it's too bad because he was an excellent instructor, but I think that college would be like missed by a lot of people, regardless of what the region wants to do with it, but that's just an opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bruno?
Thank you. In that dialogue with Scott, it brought to mind, and particularly Councillor Dance's question, does this mean that costs will be downloaded to the regional municipalities that will now do more local training? Or is the time off, the drive up and all of that stuff going to balance that out, or technology? I mean, Scott, if you can speak on the financial side to what you think might be the net of all this.
Mr. Lawson?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to council. It was a great value. I will say that the value to send a student up to the fire college for a week, it was $65 a course. We had mileage on top of that. To go to a regional school with mileage and everything else, it'll probably might be a little bit more expensive, but I think it also opens things up for our volunteers that have day jobs. They can come home at night. We have them in service for the evenings, which is a huge benefit to us. But what I've seen from the fire college, and maybe this was just COVID related or it was pre-planning, is we're moving to more online based courses where our people can actually stay at home. They can do in-service training, and we can actually get, we've entered 3 learning contracts in the last year. Instead of training one person at a time, we're actually training 7 to 10 people at a time. So like I said, I think there is some opportunities going forward for us.
Thank you for that very thorough explanation. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, council. Any further questions? So this is a motion to support the municipalities that have sent us this information. No further questions. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Okay. 8.8 was not, that was passed. There are no presentations this evening, council. No delegations, no staff remarks, council remarks. No motions, no notices of motion. We have the minutes of boards and committees. We have the Downtown Port Colborne BIA minutes of Wednesday, November the 11th. I think that is the only one here. Oh, yes, and December the 9th. So 2 sets of minutes for the BIA for downtown. If I can have Councillor Clayliff and Councillor Demery move those. Are there any questions to those minutes? All in favor? That's carried. Council, on to bylaws. This evening we have 2 bylaws, bylaw 19.1 and 19.2. Any questions with regards to these bylaws? I'll have Councillors Bodner and Baggy move these. All in favor, please raise a hand. And that is carried. Councillor Beauregard?
Through your worship, I just want to make sure that the minutes reflect that I had a conflict actually on that item, so I did not vote or make any comment.
19.1 or 19.2? 19.1?
19.1.
19.1?
Yeah.
So noted.
Thanks.
Okay, so we are going to move into camera. I have moved by Councillor Wells, seconded by Councillor Bagu. Council, do now proceed into closed session in order to address the following matters. Items 20.1, minutes of the closed session portion of February 8th, 2021 council meeting. Items 20.2 and 20.3, Chief Administrative Office reports 2021-58 and 2021-55 pursuant to the Municipal Act, subsections 2392C. A proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. Item 20.4, Corporate Services Department Report 2021-59 pursuant to the Municipal Act 2001, subsection 2392E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, and subsection 2392F, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. At this time, I have only one counselor with conflicts. That's Counselor Beauregard with items 20.2, 20.3, and 20.4. Any further conflicts? All those in favor to move into in camera, please raise a hand. That's carried. Counselor Beauregard, then you don't have to come into the meeting because you're already been noted as having conflicts. Okay, so we'll take a 10-minute recess for staff to set up for the in-camera meeting. Thank you very much for joining us this evening, and this will be on tomorrow's YouTube, Mr. Wee Guy. It'll be on tomorrow's YouTube. Thank you very much.